Welcome back to all of you European citizens. In the last lecture, we dealt with the right of EU citizenship and the status of European citizens. Thus, we learned about the rights that the European legal system grants us as Union citizens, the fundamental freedoms we enjoy, and the duties as European citizens. Today, we continue with our second to last lesson, and we will deal with one of the most important aspects of the entire course, namely what it means to be an active citizen and how this relates to the realization of the goals of Agenda 2030. First of all, what does active citizenship mean? Active citizenship means the involvement of people in their communities and democracy at all levels, from local to national and global. An active citizen promotes the quality of life in a community through both political and non-political processes, developing a combination of knowledge, skills, values, and motivation to work to make a difference in society. To be an active citizen, one must also contribute to the realization of the goals set out in Agenda 2030 and thus contributing to end poverty and hunger, realize the human rights of all, achieve gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, and ensure the lasting protection of the planet and its natural resources. Speaking of the 2030 Agenda, we should start by saying that the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is an action program for people, planet, and prosperity. Signed on the 25th of September 2015 by the governments of the 193 member countries of the United Nations and endorsed by the United Nations General Assembly, the agenda sets out 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are part of a broader program of action consisting of 169 associated goals to be achieved in the environmental, economic, social, and institutional spheres by 2030. This agenda does not solve all problems, for sure, but it does provide a good common basis for building a different world and giving everyone the opportunity to live in an environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable world. The Sustainable Development Goals have global validity. They concern and involve all countries and all parts of society, from private companies to the public sector, from civil society to information and cultural actors. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals refer to a set of important development issues that take the three dimensions of sustainable development, economic, social, and ecological, into account in a balanced manner and aim to end poverty, combat inequality, tackle climate change, and build peaceful societies that respect human rights. We now examine the 10 possible goals that the European Union is likely to reach. The first Sustainable Development Goal is good health and well-being. By 2030, reduce the global maternal mortality ratio to less than 70 per 1,000 live births. By 2030, end preventable deaths of infants and children under 5 years of age. End the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and neglected tropical disease. By 2030, promote mental health and well-being. In addition, the goal includes to strengthen prevention and treatment of substance abuse, including drug abuse and harmful use of alcohol. achieve universal health coverage, including protection from financial risks, access to quality essential healthcare services, and access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable essential medicines and vaccines for all. By 2030, substantially reduce the number of deaths and illnesses from hazardous chemical and air, water, and soil pollution and contamination. The second sustainable development goal that the European Union is able to reach is the quality education. By 2030, the Union should ensure that all boys and girls complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and effective learning outcomes. By the same date, the Union can ensure that all girls and boys have access to quality early child development, necessary care, and access to preschool so that they are ready for primary education. Ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable, quality technical, vocational education, including university. Substantially increase the number of young people and adults with the necessary skills, including technical and vocational skills, for employment and decent jobs. Eliminate gender disparities in education and ensure equal access to all levels of education and vocational training for the most vulnerable, including persons with disabilities, indigenous people, and children in vulnerable situations. In addition, ensure that all young people and substantial portion of adults, both men and women, achieve literacy and numeracy. Ensure that all students acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to promote sustainable development through, inter alia, education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and nonviolence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity and the contribution of culture to sustainable development. The Sustainable Development Goal number 3 is gender equality. The European Union could be able to end all forms of discrimination against all women, girls, and young women everywhere. Eliminate all forms of violence against all women, girls, and young men in the public and private sphere, including trafficking for prostitution, sexual exploitation, and other forms of exploitation. Eliminate all harmful practices such as forced and arranged marriage of girls and female genital mutilation, and recognize and value unpaid care and domestic work through the provision of public services, infrastructure, and social protection policies, and the promotion of shared responsibility within the family unit according to national characteristics. The fourth sustainable development goal the European Union is able to reach is affordable and clean energy. By 2030, the European Union is able to ensure universal access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services. By the same date, significantly increase the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. Double the global rate of energy efficiency improvement. The fifth goal that the European Union is able to reach is decent work and economic growth. By 2030, the European Union could be able to achieve higher levels of economic productivity through their diversification, technological upgrading, and innovation. Promote development-oriented policies and support productive activities, decent work creation, creativity, and innovation. Achieve full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men, including young people and persons with disabilities, and equal pay for work and of equal value. reduce the proportion of unemployed young people not in education or training, take immediate and effective measures to eliminate forced labor and modern slavery and trafficking, and ensure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor, including the recruitment and abuse of child soldiers, and by 2025 end child labor in all its forms. The sixth goal the European Union could be able to reach by 2030 is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. The European Union could be able to develop quality, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure, support economic development and human well-being with a focus on equitable access for all. Promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and increase the sector's share of employment and gross domestic product. Increase the access of small-scale industrialists and other enterprises to financial services. Upgrade infrastructure and modernize industries to make them sustainable. Increased adoption of clean and environmentally friendly technologies. Strengthen scientific research, promote the technological capacities of industrial sectors in all countries. The seventh achievable sustainable development goal for the European Union is reduced inequalities. By 2030, European Union should be able to enhance and promote the social, economic, and political inclusion of all, regardless of age, gender, disability, origin, religion, economic, or other status. Ensure equal opportunities for all and reduce inequalities in outcomes, including through the elimination of discriminatory laws, policies, and practices, and the promotion of appropriate laws, policies, and actions in this regard. Ensure greater representation and voice for developing countries in the decision-making process of international economic and financial institutions at the global level. Facilitate safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of persons, including through the implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies. Goal number 8 could be responsible consumption and production. By 2030, the European Union could be able to achieve sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources. Achieve the environmentally sound management of chemicals and all wastes throughout their life cycle in order to minimize their adverse effects on human health and environment. Reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. Ensure that people worldwide have the relevant information and awarenesses about the sustainable development and lifestyles in harmony with nature. Goal number 9 could be climate action. In particular, strengthening resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related risks and natural disaster in all countries. Integrate climate change mitigation measures into national policies, strategies, and plans. Improve education, awarenesses on human and institutional capacity on climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning. At last, but not at least, goal number 10 is sustainable cities and communities. By 2030, the European Union could achieve these specific goals. In particular, provide access to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services for all. Provide access to safe, sustainable, and affordable transport systems for all. Improve road safety, particularly by expanding public transport, with special attention to the needs of those in vulnerable situations, women, children, persons with disabilities, and the elderly. Strengthen commitments to protect and preserve the world's cultural and natural heritage. Reduce the number of deaths and the number of people affected by disasters, including water-related disasters. Provide universal access to safe, inclusive, and accessible public green spaces, particularly for women and children, the elderly, and persons with disabilities. As always, thank you for your kind attention.